Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today, I have David Premier with me today, and we're going to talk about the top challenges for younger sellers in the environment. We've all been young people, all having to sell, and what I'm hoping to do is to get out of David today is an understanding of what you as younger sellers can actually do to sell to old people like us. Before we go any further, David, where can people find you?
Are we old? My gosh, I didn't think we were that old. But no.
Well, older than younger people.
That's true. Yeah, there's always someone younger. No, look, Tim, it's great to be with you. People can find me on my website, cerebralselling.com. I give away tons of content away for free. Also have a YouTube channel by the same name, and of course on LinkedIn.
And so we're going to mention your book, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you haven't got a copy of David's book, I've read this, and if you're a B2B enterprise seller, it's something that you need to read, and it's not the same old rubbish regurgitated. That's think of a polite word there to say. It's actually a unique book, and it is about selling the way you buy. So, first question: why did you write this book? Because I think it's important that we use this as context. Why did you write the book?
Yeah, people who got into sales. I got into sales by accident. I was a research scientist before, and I absolutely fell in love with sales, and have been in for the last 20 years. I love it so much, but it bothers me that when you tell people you're in sales, you become the enemy, right? We're not very popular. We're not the people everyone wants to talk to. And it bothered me that, people don't, respect sales or see sales in the light that it really should be this beautiful profession. So I asked why. And as I kind of, did research and kind of, examined my own experience, I realized it was because, for many salespeople, we go out there and we execute these tactics and we're all nice people, but we execute these tactics that basically someone told us to do, right? Our managers, our sensei, whoever we learn from, and we never really thought to question, is that the right thing? Does that make sense? Is that the way people actually think and buy? Are we doing it with empathy? And the answer is we don't always do that. And that's kind of what's led to the reputation now. And so my book that kind of helps people execute this amazing profession using science and scientifically proven principles, empathetic tactics. And that's what Sell the Way You Buy is all about.
Because you were working for Salesforce, and you were running a team of people that were basically out there cold calling and sending emails. And then you're spending the rest of your day basically trying to stop salespeople ringing you and cold calling you and sending emails. So that's...
Yeah, I had this epiphany, right? I'm going out there and I'm telling my reps. And by the way, all these tactics that I kind of cast a little bit of a shadow on, they're not unethical and they're not categorically ineffective. They're just tactics that were working on us, right? When we would go back to our desk and we would sit at our phone and the phone would ring and we wouldn't answer it because who is it? It's salespeople trying to sell us stuff, especially when I was at Salesforce and I was a VP at Salesforce, people are trying to sell me things all over the place. And why not? And I'm not answering my emails. I'm not answering my phone because here's the secret, Tim. I don't like talking to salespeople.
No, right? We don't. We don't like salespeople. That's the problem.
So well, how can we be the kind of salespeople? But I thought, but I'm not a bad person, right? And some people like talking to me. So what is it that I can do to be the kind of salesperson that people actually want to talk to? Because there's no pressure. I'm empathetic. I'm using tactics that are actually rooted in the science of how people make purchasing decisions to actually make it easier. And it's funny because we experience this all the time when we go to like a clothing store, like a menswear shop, and there's a helpful, very knowledgeable person, and we leave thinking, oh, like that. There was no pressure. There was a lot of knowledge. Travel agents, the same thing. We experience positive sales experiences in everyday life. Why can't that translate into like a formal, especially B2B relationship? And so we try to bring some of these empathetic tactics and principles in, and they're very empowering. It's not like you feel weird using them. You actually feel a lot more human. In fact, I believe, oftentimes the tactics that we're taught in kind of formal sales circles are actually taking us out a little bit of that human feeling experience, right? And so when we interact with someone in a very natural way, it doesn't feel like selling at all. And those are the kind of the tactics and principles. Almost, I actually refer to it in my practice as undetectable right? People don't think that you're trying to sell them anything.
Right.
It's just
So,
human.
Just remember that's David's book, available on Amazon.
Yeah, wherever you buy books.
So you wrote an article with Harvard Business Review about, and that's in the notes of this, the link to that, about how younger people can sell to older people, because we're always in this situation. You know, I remember when I was first started selling in my 20s, the decision makers were always in their 40s and 50s, and I kind of felt like a schoolboy turning up with my shorts on, and so how do we do that?
Yeah, well, it's funny. The first thing to do is recognize one of the biggest challenges, which is what I call in the article experience asymmetry. And think of this in like very simple terms. You know, when my kids come to me and they're about to hit me up for something, you know, they want a lift to the mall or they want a sugary snack or download an app, like I can tell immediately, right? Just by the way they approach me, you know, and they're like, Dad, I'm like, the answer is no. And I become very defensive. And so I believe when you get a call from a telemarketer, ask her, how long does it take you to tell it's a call from a telemarketer who's reading a script? So the idea is that when you're a younger seller, right, in the back of your mind, and I saw this all the time at Salesforce, like imagine this. So now I have a team of really young, enthusiastic sellers, and they're calling on more senior level decision makers whose job they've never done. So this is what experience asymmetry is. So in the mind, what they're thinking is, who am I? Right? Who am I? Who am I to try to convince this person they should buy something from me? I've never done their job. I've never sat in their shoes before. And so what happens is that insecurity manifests subconsciously in your tone of voice, in your mannerisms, right? And so oftentimes I would have reps that I would be listening to their phone calls, recorded conversations, and you know, they were having all these great conversations, but no pipeline. Right. And I would ask them, like, well, what's the problem? And the only recourse I had was to listen to their calls. And I would almost like, imagine this. Imagine you're listening to one of these calls. You close your eyes and you're not even paying attention to I don't even care about the words. I'm just listening for the tone. And the tone, as I'm listening to these calls, I would say, it feels like you're bothering this customer. Like, that's what it feels like to me. You're worried that you're not adding enough value, that you don't know what you're doing, and it's coming across. And by the way, the customer is thinking, who the hell is this kid? And what are they going to teach me about running my business?
Yep.
So that's the big challenge. This problem I talk about in the article, experience asymmetry. It's the tone, it's the approach. It's not having been in your customer's shoes that creates challenges when you're trying to convert them.
So what is it that we need to do? I mean, I remember I read just about, I was selling payroll software. I read just about every single article there was about payroll to become like a payroll expert. That's the only way that I could see around it, was to try and put myself in their shoes. Maybe
Well, that's absolutely step one. If you don't know, you don't do your homework, you don't do your research, you don't know what their pains are, you know, what they spend their time doing all day, then it's very difficult to have that conversation. So that's step one. You need to know what they do every day and what their pains are, and that's table stakes. And it can't be something that's just pure surface level. It's like, imagine if I go into the electronics store to buy a TV and I ask the salesperson, what's the difference between this TV and that TV? And all they do is they start reading like the little cards underneath, you know, it's like, this many mega. I'm like, I'm not an idiot. I could have done, you know, I could have done that myself. I want to know something deeper, something that showcases that you actually know something that's not, you know, not as advertised about this thing. So that's the first thing. As a seller, you need to do your homework. But then the second piece is you really need to be able to invoke that credibility on demand, because it's great. Like, you can do your homework and you can read the thing off the sheet to me, or, you know, something insightful. But unless I feel that you believe it, right? And this goes for anything in sales. I don't care if you've been in sales for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. If I don't feel like you believe in what you're saying, I can tell. And conviction is a very powerful force when it comes to converting customers. Yeah. And so one of the things we talk about is, like, it's not just about knowing the content, it's about delivering it with conviction. And instead of using things that sound like a pitch, and I talk about this in the book, things like invoking things like what I refer to as belief statements. So statements about your company or product or service that actually have nothing to do with the functional technical merits, right?
Give so for example.
Yeah, like, so in my world, I would say, hey, look, you know, I believe people love to buy things, but they hate talking to salespeople. right? And so if you ask me, well, what do I do? Like, I work with companies who realize that people love to buy things, but they hate talking to salespeople. And I also believe that there's a lot of great salespeople, or I'd say bad salespeople out there that are actually not bad people, right? They're good people, right? They're just using tactics that are rooted, I believe, in old, outdated principles, not scientifically proven, not empathetic. So I'm giving you these examples. These are things that I would say, and I'm not even talking about what I do. I'm not even saying, oh, I do training and speaking. I'm leading with what I believe, and it feels authentic. So framing your pitch, as it were, with some of these kind of emotionally driven, principles it's much more powerful and authentic way. So that's kind of, to give you an example, a way of communicating what you do that speaks to that conviction. But the other thing, as you mentioned, which was, when you read industry articles and reports, like, let's assume for a second that you have zero experience at your company. And by the way, when I say, we're talking about younger salespeople, it's not just younger salespeople. It's if you're new to your company or new to your industry, you will have the same thing. Even if you've been in sales for 10 years, you're starting from scratch to some extent. So you have no credibility. And so, I always used to joke. I said, look, no one cares. You're not Barack Obama. You're not Oprah Winfrey. No one cares what you think. So the trick is, like, how do you invoke in your narrative the credibility of others, or invoke the credibility of entities that have that credibility? So rather than using what I refer to as I phrasing, well, what I found and what I've seen and what I know, no one cares about you. So you would use phrases like, well, what our customers have found, right? And you can say that on day one of your work, even, because your customers have tons of credibility. This research study in Harvard Business, what they said was that entity has way more credibility than you. So it's almost like shifting the burden of credibility from you onto other things that have it in your narrative.
Yeah, I had a sales manager that said, because I was selling to mainly what we would call public sector. So I don't know, so government departments. And there's a number of things that that the product needed to do to meet the payroll requirements of government and there's particular union books of terms and conditions. So they said there was a black book and an orange book, and basically he said what you do is you go on and immediately you say it does black book and orange book, and everyone goes, you know what that is? You go, yeah, of course I do. No, but that was about giving myself some credibility. Well, if it does that, then and then you go, and of course there's always a back pay argument when they have discussions. So then it does full pay retrospection. So there was from a sports perspective, to use a sports metaphor, they were like set pieces that I would basically bring into the conversation to try and give me credibility. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the trick is it's one thing to bring those things in. It's another thing to make it seem as though like these things are second nature to us.
Yes.
And the only way to do, not the only, but the best way to do that is you have to practice. And it's funny how we always joke in sales, professional athletes, they spend more time practicing than they do actually playing the game. And in sales, we just go out there and get our ass handed to us by customers. We don't practice. So, that's part of the trick is like the narrative, the dialogue, the point should almost feel like second nature to you. And that, I would say, that not only applies to younger salespeople trying to convert older buyers, but it's the same thing, for example, when you're doing discovery in general. Because, like, for example, no one likes to be politely interrogated. When I'm dealing with a salesperson and I feel they're going through like a tick list of like, all right, what's your budget? What's your needs? Like, that's not pleasant at all, right? But if I start getting questions that almost make, as a customer, make me feel that the salesperson just thought of that on the spur of the moment. Like it was a special gift. You know what, Tim, as we're talking now, I'm actually just curious about this. Can you share with me? And now it makes you feel like I just invented that question just for you. Now, of course, I might ask that question to everyone, but the way I make it feel second nature is I practice, and you absolutely have to practice.
I think anything that's a tick box, you just feel that this is just an interrogation, not a discovery. And absolutely. What you do is you'll end up just giving one-word answers because you just want to get rid of the person. But I guess, in the article you say, first, you need to understand the pain points. So you need to learn your background and know what the pain points are, even if you don't know what that means or you
correct
and know that.
And you know what, I kind of refer to, I don't think I actually talk about this in the book anywhere, but this is something I've talked about in my own practice and to my own teams, is that there's a chronology. Like when you start your sales role, you think, well, I need to know the product, I need to know the pitch, I need to know how to do discovery, I need to know how to negotiate. And my view is like, that's like a chronological thing. First, you need to know the pain points, then like the discovery, then this, then that. And I say, like, start with the first thing first. Like, you should be so lucky to end up in a negotiation, right? And earlier in your sales career, know what the pain points and the value points are first, then move on to like the demo and the solutions and all that kind of stuff. Because if you can't have that initial conversation, the customer will decide very quickly that you're not worth continuing the dialogue with.
Yeah. And then, as you say, about invoking the credibility of others. And saying, most of our clients are doing this, or that the industry is thinking this, and you should be able to get that from your manager, your mentor, your other people within the team.
Absolutely. Well, I'll also say, one thing when we talk about customers, and customers always have tons of credibility, right? You can say, well, what our customers have found is that A, B, and C. But there's a difference. When I read those customer stories from a testimonial or on my website, it can still feel a little academic, right? It's like someone wrote this down. It's like a sanitized thing. Oftentimes, and God bless marketing, oftentimes when we get these marketing win slides, they're not really slides that tell a deep customer story. It's like, oh, the customer had this problem and they like this about us, and they chose us for this reason. One of the things I'm a huge fan of, and I'm going to credit Adam Grant, who I'm a big fan of as well, Wharton School professor. So he talks about this idea of abstraction. And, it's one thing to read about a case study, online somewhere. It's another thing to have the customer that experienced the value firsthand come in and speak to you, or at least your group, and you hear it directly from them. And when he did this experiment at the alumni department at his university, he found that the revenue from the BDR team that was soliciting donations for scholarships and so on increased by 400%. And so the take-home message, when we hear something directly, even me, when I hear one of my clients tell me, oh yeah, David, we implemented this tactic and we saw a jump in this or a decrease in that and like good numbers, I will tell that story all day long, because even if it's one story, because I heard it from a customer, and I can manifest more conviction and passion because of how I heard it from them. So my advice, get out from behind the slides and case studies. And if you're a sales leader, get your customers in front of your salespeople and tell them that story first.
It's like a sales meeting thing, where you get a customer to come and present. You'll always get customers, because you always find a customer that wants to tell you how great they are. Yes. But the thing is that what we get from marketing is always that everything was wonderful. And actually, what you need is for a customer to say, well, actually, this went wrong, and this went wrong, and this went wrong. So one of the things that I found was that. So I asked customers and said, so, what went wrong? And then I actually used that in the sales process. And I actually said, and I set a trap and said, all the other salespeople will tell you how great things are, but these are the three risks that you need to have, and you need to manage those as a team. I used the tactic even today. And I think that's a way of building credibility, because everyone understands that your product will never be, it's not an immaculate conception. There will always be problems. And the point is that it's not about the problems, it's how you solve those problems.
Absolutely. Well, I think the sales reps that have tons of credibility are the ones that do exactly what you just suggested, which is to say, look, if you want to be successful, and we know that it's not all about the product. You can have any product, even a consumer product. And oftentimes it comes down to like, did you use it properly? And did you use it in the right way? And so telling a customer, hey, look, if you want to, like, you're looking at these case studies and slides and it says you're going to get a X% increase in this and an uplift in that. And all that really comes down to, I actually talk about this in the book as well. I call it the paradox of ROI, which is we do. Yeah. We publish all of these, case studies and ROI calculations and so on. And really the only thing it comes down to is whether the customer believes that that thing is going to happen or not, right? And what are the circumstances under which it will happen? So it's great to say, oh yeah, this customer saw this increase. The customer's thinking, well, am I going to see that? And so to your point, as a seller, if you can come out and say, hey, look, if you want to achieve, like, obviously we're talking about these great results. If you want to achieve those results, here are the things that our best customers do to do that. And here are the pitfalls that they fall into that prevent them from doing that, right? And that can give you as much credibility because you're being honest, You're almost letting it be up to the customer now. Are you willing to do what it takes, right? To be,
yeah,
to be successful?
and I think also what you're doing is that you're saying, I want you to be successful. But you need to know that these are the mistakes that people make. Therefore, you need to manage that as part of this process, and that will make you sure that you're successful. And that means that you're using all of those techniques in terms of coming across to the person, and ultimately maybe making them a champion for you.
Correct. Look, customers appreciate like the honesty and the kind of the best and worst thing that happens. You never want to have a customer come back to you and say, well, you oversold me. You told me it was going to do these things. And then you say, well, that was what the best customers get. You should have thought about A, B, and C. If all of a sudden, something goes off the rails or there's a problem, and goodness knows there's always going to be a problem. If you've inoculated the customer ahead of time and told them that, hey, look, here are the things you need to do to make it successful. And if you do those things, you're going to be successful. And if you don't, things can fall off the rails. They're going to be, not, I'm going to say less, but that honesty will translate not just into the sale, but the post-sale, the renewal, because the customer doesn't think of their experience with you as ending in the sales cycle, right? It's the end-to-end experience.
So Dave, so just for people who are watching, David talks about inoculating customers and people over certain things in his book, just so you know. But because we've run out of time, we're not going to cover that. So if you want to know about inoculating customers, you're going to have to read the book, buy the book, and read it. That's fair, isn't it, David?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the secret. I don't want to say this too loud. I also give away a lot of stuff for free on my website. And
it is. David is a YouTube, the YouTube channel. You've got to. It's all the stuff. You've got to go all the way.
Yeah, look, I've realized people like different things. I have the audiobook now, and people are going nuts about the audiobook because people love audio. Not everyone reads. Same thing. Some people consume YouTube, articles. I actually find it helpful to have not just the book. The book is great if you want like the digest of all these great things and it all hangs together. But sometimes people just want like a tip on a particular instance, like how younger salespeople can convert older buyers. And then we focus on that. So, I'm happy to put content out there and have everyone consume it,
So David, apart from the book that we have mentioned once or twice, where can people find you? You've got, where question?
Yeah. So cerebralselling.com is my main website. And that has all, my blog. It has links to my videos, podcast, YouTube channel, and so on. Cerebral Selling is the name of the YouTube channel as well. And then, you can feel free to hit me up as well on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people.
You're a big social person anyway, aren't you? So
no, look, you know what? I try to put content out there. I'm not crazy religious where every day I'm putting out, things. I try to be, as you see, when you look at my articles on my blog and in the book, I don't put out a lot of, if I can call them like fluff pieces where it's 500, 600 words, like here's my top 10 list of X. I try to be, spend more time being thoughtful about the pieces I put out. So that's what you'll find.
Cool. Thank you so much, David, for coming on today and sharing that with us. I mentioned the book. Check out the article. It's well worth a read. It's in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight. I'm being so bubbly and interesting and funny.
Oh no! Look, I'd like to say this is all an act, but no. This is my pleasure to join you. Thank you for having me, Tim. And the thing I tell people is I say, look, I'm not hunting for compliments. I say, can you tell that I love what I do? Right? I love what I do.
You do. You love what you do.
But when I ask people, how can you tell, right? And they say, oh well, these nondescript things that you pick up on are the same things I ask people. I say, when you talk about what it is you do, your product or service, do you think I can tell if you love it or not? Do you believe in it? Yeah. And so the key is you got to believe. That's that's the secret to being great at sales. Just believe in what you do.
It is. David, thank you so much. Have a great day. Have a great day.
Pleasure.
And stay safe.
Yeah, you too. Yeah. All the best.